just release this. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today I'm gonna dig into my 3400 heads a little bit here. Just kind of show you guys some tricks how to get a little more power out of them. I see you guys doing a lot of head gaskets and whatnot, and this is basically just something simple that you can do while your heads are off to kind of squeeze a little more power out of your heads. So let's dig in. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, start by disassembling. These are just a set of 2002 3400 heads. I will have to change the rocker studs when I do these heads on my car. My car is the newer 3400, so it's got the 8mm studs on them. These are 10 mils. These heads were off my buddy Trevor's old Alero before we put the 3500 in. He had this 3400 in his car. Unfortunately, I'm not able to use this one head. Somebody did a nice butcher job when they removed the exhaust stud. Actually, the exhaust stud was broken. I had to remove it. I got out the best I could, but they did quite a job trying to remove it last time and just kind of left it in there and siliconed it all up. So I have another casting that's the exact same casting number that I'm going to use. I'm going to start with that one and use the other good one. So yeah, that's just something you got to watch out for on these. A lot of people just kind of butcher stuff up like that, or stuff goes wrong and you kind of do what you can do. So if you're starting with your heads, make sure you got a good set to start with. So we'll get these suckers apart, and I'll show you a few things you can do. So I gotta get the valves and the springs off of these. A couple ways to do this. You can buy these little valve spring compressors here. They work alright. I used one of these for years. When you get into the heavier valve springs, they do get to be a little sketchy, just because there's only a little bit holding on to the spring, and there's a lot of pressure built up. So if they slide off, then you're either eating a tool or eating a spring. The other tool is the valve spring compressor here. It's not one of the fancy air powered ones. I don't have any air here, so this works just great for what it is. So got my spring compressed there. I just need to get the keepers out. If you have a magnet, that works best. I just use a screwdriver. It's got a little bit of magnetism to it. Then you just back it off like so. Try not to shoot the spring across the room. Try to keep these all in order too. If you're reusing them, I'm going to be reusing them, so they'll go back in the same order they came apart. Alright, so once you get your valves out, it's always a good idea to give the heads a good cleaning. I've already got the seals off of these ones. I just gave them a quick degreasing the other day. It's enough that I can start porting them out now. Once they are done porting, I'll give them a good cleaning before they actually go back on the vehicle. Basically what we're trying to do here is increase the air coming into the engine and air going out of the engine. This is basically where most of your restriction will be in pretty much any engine. The best way to describe how this works, basically like picking your nose. You remove your boogers, you can breathe a little better. So that's basically what we're doing. We're just removing some boogers out of the cylinder heads. So we'll have a look here. I just have a light on the bench here so I can get a good look at the ports, exhaust ports. So what we're going to focus on doing today is basically what they would call a bowl blend. You're just going to be kind of cleaning up this stuff here. This is will pick you up quite a bit of flow. Basically, when they go in to cut the seats, as you can see by this mark here, that's from where the cutter stopped. It basically just gets rid of all the rough casting. So we're just basically kind of smoothing this all out just to make the airflow much better. And on the exhaust side, we will be doing the same. So there's a couple of ways that we can clean up the bowls here. First method, you can, if you don't have nothing else, you can use your drill. Pick up some like something like this sanding roll kit. These are like 10 bucks a kit at Princess Auto. I think they're about the same price at Harbor Freight. The last time I was in there, it's a good idea to have one of these anyways, and you can just clean up your port work when you're done there. I originally was going to just do the video with doing this, but I kind of want to get this done, and I have the tools to do it a little better than just with the sanding rolls. This will get done what you need. It will make an improvement, but ideally you want to use like a carbide bit to carve away the aluminum. Option number 2 is to pick up one of these little Dremel style tools. You can get these used for under 50 bucks, so you don't have to invest too much. I will recommend though, make sure you get the carbides to go with them. This is the carbide kit I got off Amazon. It works good. The only problem is you have to be very easy on them, keep the RPMs down. I did have one of these that actually bent with a little bit of extra RPM, and as soon as it got warm it just kind of warped. So just keep the RPMs down, go lightly, and it'll work good for you. This will come in handy for doing like the chamber stuff, when you have to blend the chambers and stuff in after any small detail work. That's where these will come in handy as well. Then the method that I use, I have a heavy duty grinder here. It's basically like what Fordham sells, but this is an older Dremel unit. I found this one used online. It was probably about 3 times the price of the little Dremels that you find. It does work good though, so once this one quits I'll have to look for a Fordham. So let's get started here. So before you start, you'll want to have some glasses handy and a face mask. So the aluminum dust is not good for you. One thing you want to avoid is you don't want to have the grinder hit anywhere on your valve seat, because any deep gouges and it makes it harder for the valve to seat after. I am just going to lap the valves. Ideally, once you're done, you're best to take the heads to a machine shop, have them mill them, and just ask for a performance valve job. That way they'll do the best they can to get the best airflow past the valve seat. Some people say they want a 3 angle, some people say they want 5 angle. They'll probably just do a 3 angle for you. Just basically just each groove on the seat. If you're worried about hitting the seats at all, best bet is to just put a little layer of duct tape or something on there. That way you don't actually nick the seat if you kind of bounced a bit on the way out or anything. I'll just tape this one up and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So basically you'll just want to kind of tape up your valve seat a little bit. if you have a feeling that you might actually hit the valve seat and you're trying to avoid getting a valve job done. Valve job most times is usually worth some extra power, so it doesn't hurt to spend the extra and get the valve job done. But I am doing this on a budget, so we're not going to do a valve job on the set. Another good thing to do before you start on a good set of heads is pick up a scrap head from a blown engine. Sometimes you get core heads at the wreckers, even just something used off the buy and sell websites or whatever. Something somebody's throwing out, I guess. It doesn't always have to be the same head, but it's best to practice on something that's not worth anything before you try to do this on your own heads. That's basically how I started out doing all this years ago. So let's get started here. I'll show you guys with the small grinder just so you get an idea of what I'm doing before I switch to the good one. So I'm just starting out with just a regular bit there. It's going to go on low speed. It's going to start blending in the bowl here. I always have the vacuum handy, that way I can just vacuum out any of the chips that are floating around in there. You'll start to notice the better the flow gets as well. Usually you'll see the chips start moving out of there a lot quicker. So that's basically what we're trying to do. We're just trying to blend all this in nice and smooth. You can usually feel with your finger, like the sharp edge on the seat there. So you just kind of go around that and blend that in nice. I'm just going to remove the tape so I can get my other grinder in there. I've had a little more experience doing these things than some people, so that also helps. This is one I usually use. It's made for doing aluminum. It's longer. It helps get in there. I have a whole assortment of bits that I use for different spots that I'm trying to reach and everything, so this one's pretty much the one I use the most, I'd say. You always want to keep the bit moving too. You don't want to sit in one spot too long and then you start making pits and stuff, so always keep the bit moving. So you can kind of see what I've been doing here. Just kind of blending that all in. And you usually feel it with your finger and get an idea of where you're going, the roughness of it and everything. You see on where we basically started with all the sharp edges here. It's always a good idea as well to look at the port from a bunch of different angles too. The more you look at it, the more you can see kind of what you're doing as well. And you'll see more angles, like the short turn here. This is where you'll pick up quite a bit of flow, is getting this kind of blended in nice too. So I'll keep at it and I'll get back to you once I got that kind of cleaned up where I want it. You kind of see the sharp edge on the short turn here. It's kind of what working on blending up now. So one other spot I'm going to work on here, if you can see, is this is the boss for the rocker arm where the pedestal is. I'm not gonna remove this completely because there's not a whole lot of material there. We're just gonna blend it in a little better. Anytime you take the intakes off, you'll notice where the injectors are spraying all the time. It's always like a kind of a shiny spot here and on the side here. And most of the fuel's kind of getting blocked by this boss here. So we'll clean that up now. As you can see, I didn't take out a whole lot of it, but I did reduce it quite a bit. That'll help with the fuel distribution and the airflow entering the port as well. Alright, so I got my intake blended where I want it. Still has some roughness there from the cutter. You don't really want to sand them on the intake, that way the fuel still atomizes. That's basically all I'm going to do on the intake side there. Just doing that will make it flow, nice flow improvement. That alone will make it a nice street head. Alright, so now I'm going to start on the exhaust port. Basically, same thing we did on the intake, just going to blend in the bowls. And we'll go from there. You can see here on this bowl that the cutter has left quite a bit of a ridge there. I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you end up start digging in trying to smooth that out too much, you could screw up the shape of the bowl and that'll start killing your flow. So don't go too crazy trying to get all these imperfections out. That's just basically from the cutter. There's a little bit of a ridge on the seat there. Just the way they've made it. So now I've just flipped the head over, get the inside of the bowl here, the outside wall, and then I'll get the short turn as well. You'll see in the port here, on the inside wall, basically the wall closest to the intake port here, you'll see that how it kind of has a curve in it. You don't want to grind that out. You want to leave that curve in there. Basically, what's happening is what they're trying to do is basically just shoot the air towards the outside of the port. That's how they get them to flow better. If you take that out, then you start losing your velocity and your flow. Now we'll move on to the exit of the port. A lot of you will want to basically go in here and try to open this up as wide as you can and high as you can. We're not going to do that. It's not necessary. We're just going to do a little bit of cleanup, and we'll raise the roof a little bit just to give it a little bit more flow. So basically what I'm doing, I'm just cleaning up what casting flash is all there and everything. Just getting ready to polish it out more. So that's pretty much all I'll end up doing with the exit of the port. I'm just going to go in and smooth this a little bit more. Get that bare spot up in the front of the port there. In the bowl here. Alright, so I basically got this one as far as I'm going with it. Now I'll just go over it with a sanding roll. Just to smooth it out. Kind of give it the polish, so to say. I did have to change the bit. I went to a pointier bit just to get in around the guide here a little bit. So that's why I have a large assortment for getting in all the other angles. So did not touch the floor of the port, I'll just sand that down. I basically try to stay away from taking any material off the floor. The way I see it, they've basically designed it flat like that for a reason, so there's no need to really mess with it. Okay, so now I got my sanding roll here. Now I'm just going to go through the port and smooth it out some more. Alright, so I got my exhaust port pretty much smoothed out here. The best I get with the sanding rolls. So now I might go over it with the flap wheel. You don't have to. I just like to have them a little shinier, but this would do just fine. Okay, now we're going to move on to the combustion chamber. We're going to work on reshaping it a little. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you haven't done it before. I do like to use a couple old valves. That way I protect the seat. Just put those in there and I can basically just grind around it. If I hit the valve, then it's no big deal. So if you can find, if you start out on a scrap set to practice on, you get some old valves, so you'll be set. Or if you're replacing your valves, then you'll be fine to do that as well. If you're going to reuse the valves on your heads, just avoid this step or be very careful. If you're going to reuse your valves, I would not recommend grinding with them in there. All I'm trying to do is basically protect the seat where the valve sits. So, alright, so now we're gonna start cleaning up chambers. This is where you're using the little Dremel with the little 1/8 inch carbides. This is where they come in handy. It's for getting in spots like here. Basically all we're going to do is just blend this in a little bit more and kind of bring down the bump here, bring down the center. There is other bits I have like this that'll do the same thing kind of. I do have some pointed ones, but I believe I left that one at work right now. So what we're basically doing is just deshrouding the valves, bringing the wall back a little bit more, so when the valve opens, you got a little more airflow past the valve. Now I just need to round this off a little bit here, that way we're not leaving any sharp edges that would cause any extra knock in the cylinders or pre-ignition. So that's basically all we're doing with the chamber, just cleaning it up a little bit, that way it gets a little better flow. You can see this big lump here on the other one, so that will help out quite a bit. Now if you wanted, you could go through and actually polish it with some of the polishing pieces that you might have. I have a kit full of them, so I will go through and do that before I put it all together. One thing I should add before you start grinding away, if you're uncomfortable doing this, another added protection would be to take the old head gasket and tape it on here, and also kind of tape up any more spots of the deck with some duct tape or something. That way there's less chance of your bit slipping and gouging the surface. Alright, so once you're done, you're basically gonna end up with something like this. So my chambers are all cleaned up, and the exhaust bowls intake bowls, and then the exhaust ports. And now it's on to assembly. Alright, so now that you got your heads just about ready to go together, I'll show you one more thing where you can pick up a little bit more power. I just have the scale here. And what I'm going to do on my 3400 when I build it is swap to a 3500 intake valve. This is the 3400 intake valve. You see the shape of it. This is a new 3500 intake valve. They have changed the shape just a little bit on them, so that picks up the flow, and they are also lighter than the 3400 valves. You see here, 3400 valve. It's just about 100 grams there. If you take that out and you put your 3500 valve in, drops you down to 86 grams. So that will help you get a little more power by increasing the flow of the cylinder heads and by reducing the weight to allow the engine to rev a little more freely. Same with the exhaust valves. I didn't order any exhaust valves. I have just the new valves here for the intake. I was more concerned about the flow than the weight. But if you wanted to save some weight, you could change from 3400 exhaust valves. You can put in the 3500 exhaust valves. Which drops you down just a little bit. I'm not sure if there's any flow difference between the 3500 exhaust valves and the 3400s. The shape isn't too much different. I think I might have tested them years ago, but that was over 10 years ago, and I don't remember exactly. I just know the 3500 valves actually picked up a little bit of flow, so just some more tips for you there. Here is the part number for the 3500 valves if you're looking to order some. Seal power, it's part number. I just got these from Rock Auto. I think they're like $9–10 a piece, something like that. So it's a good upgrade. So one other area that can be improved on is the valve springs. It's a good idea to upgrade them while everything's apart. You can get these LS6 valve springs. Basically just look up LS6 valve springs. If you can find the yellow ones, they're a little bit better, but the blue ones are still much better in stock. They are taller, but there's one problem. You have to change out your valve seats, which is this part right here, and the seal. The 3400s have them all built into one, as you can see here. So you'd have to talk to your machine shop and see if they can find something that will fit your guides, or they might be able to machine these down and install a different seal that fits. So as you can see, that's 3400 spring. That's the LS6 spring, doesn't fit over the hump here on the seat. If you want to spend a little bit more money, then I think these are about 120 bucks Canadian anyways for a set of 16. Looking at the Summit site. If you want to spend more money, I'm not sure on the price. If you shop around, you should be able to get a good deal, but you can go to the Comp 26986, I believe is the part number, and they will fit basically like stock, and they're much better valve spring. I'll show you guys here. This is what you'll have to look out for. So that's your stock inside diameter. These ones, these LS6 springs, are a little narrower. When you're searching for springs, you'll have to find one that will clear your valve stem seat here if you're using the factory seats. If you're going aftermarket, then that shouldn't be a problem. The reason you want to upgrade your valve springs is to allow your engine to rev a little more without floating the valves. It just keeps everything more stable. Another reason to change your valve springs is if you install a cam. If you do install a cam, talk to the person that sold you the cam, and they will recommend the valve spring to use with the cam. So once you got your heads all ported out, you got your new valves or old valves ready to go back together. If you do take them to the machine shop, just leave them all apart. Most machine shops, if they're milling your heads and doing your valve job, they'll usually put them together for you if you ask. If not, they won't charge you too much really to put them together. That way you kind of verifies everything's good, and then when they put it together, then you can just bolt them on when you get home with them. I am going to try to get some flow numbers soon for these. Probably won't be till the next video, maybe not even till after I have them installed. I will get some flow numbers, some before and after. Not necessarily from this exact head, but I'll port another one to the same. I'll test them with the 3500 valves and the 3400 valves just to show you how much the valves alone pick up for flow. Ideally, I would like to dyno these after installing them and before installing them, but worst case I'll just try to get some before and after quarter mile times, and that should give you an idea of what kind of power increase you'll get out of them. So that's going to be it for this one. Until next time, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like and share this video with any of your 3400 or 3100 buddies that want to get some more power out of their cylinder heads. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.